What if there was a podcast that did it all? Sports, politics, world events. Well, that's what we've got. You're listening to C&C Talks.
Hello, I'm Colin.
I'm Charlie.
Welcome to episode 21 of the C&C Talks podcast.
Just a reminder, as we do every week, we release every Tuesday and we talk about politics, world events, and sports. It is currently Monday, October 31st. Happy Halloween, everybody. And it's about 1 p.m. Pacific time.
And when you're listening to this, it's November, so happy November, everybody. Just 2 months left of this year, and it's going to be an eventful 2 months. But coming up on this episode, there was a very eventful week. There was an attack on the Pelosi family. Elon Musk officially buys Twitter. We've got some midterm election news. The World Series is going, some NFL, some college football, and some other stuff as well. Let's get right started with the assassination attempt on Nancy Pelosi.
Yes. Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi, was attacked with a hammer in the middle of a fight, and this was at the Pelosi house in San Francisco. Paul is expected to make a full recovery and underwent brain surgery on Friday.
Yeah,
so
and he is still apparently in the ICU, but still expected to make a full recovery. So our thoughts and prayers go out to him and the entire Pelosi family. But yeah, so the attacker was actually looking for Nancy Pelosi. She was in D.C. at the time, so of course taking place at the Pelosi house in San Francisco. So the attacker's plan apparently was to tie Paul Pelosi up until Nancy Pelosi arrived back home. He apparently did have zip ties with him, and then to kill Nancy Pelosi. So just clearly an assassination attempt on the person that's second in the line of succession to the presidency, Charlie.
Yes. And so can we get a little bit more on who this attacker was?
Yeah, so it's a really far-right person who's spread wild conspiracy theories on social media, normally related to QAnon, some of those conspiracy theories about how the Democrats are a cabal of cannibalistic pedophiles, and it's really just completely crazy. There's no other way to say it. And the attacker was likely radicalized by Fox News to a large extent, which really, if we're being completely honest, given the number of instances of violence that they have incited, and we know that from what attackers have said, right, that they were pretty much told to do this by Fox News, but to me that feels like it meets the criteria of a terrorist organization.
Yes, and there's already been several conspiracies about this attack. Can we get some more on that, Colin?
Yeah, so the right really wants to claim that it just didn't happen, the attack, because when something happens because of you and you don't want to take responsibility for it, something that you do. So some are claiming it was staged. There's one really disgusting conspiracy theory that has a lot of homophobia baked into it. It's the main conspiracy theory which Fox News and some Republican members of Congress are promoting. Even Elon Musk tweeted it out, and it's so disgusting that we are not going to actually discuss it on this show. But yeah. And speaking of Elon Musk, Charlie, he just purchased Twitter.
Yes, it's been half a year in the making of trying to figure out how this deal was going to work, but it has finally been done. And here's some interesting things that have happened, shall we say. It's now privately owned by Musk, and we've seen a rise in hate speech following the purchase. Musk is refusing to ban hate speech on the platform in a reversal from the previous policy in the name of, quote, free speech.
And use of the N-word on Twitter is up 500% since Musk took over, right? That's not okay. No. And disinformation is on the rise also, and something that's going to continue the rise of disinformation is their new verification policy, where anyone can be verified on Twitter, but as long as they pay $20 a month, which completely, to me, Charlie, just takes away the entire point of verification, because it's supposed to be to find accounts that are trustworthy. It's for viewers who are on Twitter looking for information to be able to find trustworthy sources instead of fakes. And that's just completely gone away under this new policy. We'll see if Musk reverses it at some point, because it also just seems like a terrible business decision. I don't see many people actually buying it because those who want to probably don't have the money. Just going to be honest about that, right? That's $240 a year. That's not insignificant money.
No. And in other news, Kanye West continues to be canceled after his anti-Semitic comments a few weeks ago. Dozens of brands have dropped him, and his net worth has gone down by hundreds of millions of dollars to now around $400 million.
Which is still a ridiculous amount of money. He's also closed the Donda Academy. This is, of course, following extremely anti-Semitic comments that have been gaining popularity, including signs all over the country right now. One displayed, actually, right outside the Florida-Georgia football games over the weekend that said, Kanye was right about the Jews. And there's other people spreading anti-Semitic stuff. Brooklyn Nets star Kyrie Irving has been spreading anti-Semitic thoughts recently as well. Let's move on to the midterm elections, which, when this episode comes out, is just going to be 1 week away. And make sure, before we start the segment, if you are eligible to vote, vote. Right? It is your right to do that. There were people that fought to give you that right. If you are eligible to vote, then vote. But start with the Dr. Oz, John Fetterman debate. Start with Dr. Oz's comments on abortion, because they were iffy.
Yes. Dr. Oz said that women, doctors, and local political leaders should decide whether someone should get an abortion. And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no. That's a no. That's not really any different.
I don't understand why the local politicians should have any.
Exactly. It should be between the women and the doctors, and in some cases, the woman's male partner. Not in all cases, but in some cases, that person can be involved. Fetterman, though, he did not have a great debate either. Stroke effects were clear. He's had a tough time speaking throughout the debate. He is on the pathway to recovery, though. It's expected that he will continue to get better over the next few months. So who do you think won the debate?
I would say it was very close, but I do think Oz did win that debate.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Fetterman should have won the debate, right? I think that policy is just a more important thing than how coherently you're able to speak. And yes, we've talked about Herschel Walker, but also Fetterman's brain works. He just has some language, like auditory processing issues. But I think that, given what people saw, I think that Oz did win the debate, which is unfortunate because that probably should not have happened. But he, I think, did. And he's a good debater. He's been on television for decades. Also, poll watchers in Arizona who are causing some big problems right now, Charlie.
Yes. Far-right groups are shooting up outside of polling locations to monitor people voting. They are carrying guns and taking pictures of faces of people voting and their license plates, which would be considered voter intimidation. And the other thing is that this is very organized. It's not just a couple of loose people doing it. These seem to be very organized.
Yeah, there's like websites where you can sign up to go outside polling places with guns and take pictures of license plates. A judge somehow ruled it legal, though, which it shouldn't be. And let's not forget, in certain places it's illegal to give water to people that are in line to vote, but it's illegal to, hold guns up to them. That just feels completely wrong. Moving on, there was a big election in Brazil over the weekend, and Lula, the former president of Brazil, defeated the incumbent far-right president Jair Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro, however, is threatening a coup to remain in power. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully it does not go well for Bolsonaro because, as a general rule, coups are bad. So one of Lula's top promises, Charlie, and I think that this is huge, is he's promising to end deforestation in the Amazon, which that would just have massive consequences on not just the area, but the entire world in terms of fighting climate change. A huge step in the right direction there.
It would if he can prevent a coup.
Yes. So before we move on to sports, let's talk about some announcements about this show. First of all, we have a special episode coming out this Friday, 8 a.m. Pacific time, everywhere that you listen to podcasts. We're going to be discussing the rising amount of political violence in America as we're coming up on these midterm elections. Also have the C&C Talks 5, we mentioned this last week, which is premiering shortly after Thanksgiving at 7 a.m. Pacific time, 3 to 7 days a week exclusively on YouTube. Everything you need to know about the previous day. And Charlie, After Hours has a new episode, I believe.
Yes, we do. We have several. We have 2 new episodes. One of them's out now. One of them will be coming out shortly, and we will have a lot more episodes down the line into the next few weeks and beyond.
Yeah, so this is the C&C Talks podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Let's move on to sports, and we're going to start with the World Series.
Yes, the Houston Astros and Philadelphia Phillies are tied at 1 game apiece at the time of taping. Game 3 will be
Monday night.
Yes, which is tonight for us, last night for those watching on Tuesday.
And in Philadelphia.
The next 3 games are in Philadelphia. So the recap of the first 2 games. Game 1, Justin Verlander really struggled. He's 0-6 in World Series games, over 8 starts, and his ERA is over 6. And in that game, Houston got out to an early lead and then ended up collapsing and losing that game 6-5.
Yeah, it was an incredible comeback. Just a tremendous game all around. JT Realmuto, the hero in the 10th inning.
And then in Game 2, Houston again got an early lead, and there was actually a home run that got called back from Philly that really could have given them a spark, and that game ended in a 5-2 Houston victory.
And one of the notable things about that game was actually umpire Pat Hoberg, and normally when we mention umpires, it's because they're really, really bad. This one's actually impressive, though. Pat Hoberg had a perfect game, did not miss any calls as the home plate umpire, and I feel like it's unreasonable to expect umpires to get 100% every time, but also, like, you want it to be 100% because it matters, and I think that that's the case for robot umps, right? Is that it's not reasonable to, even the best umpires are most of the time going to get the occasional call wrong. You want a situation where you're getting the call right every single time. Let's move on to the NFL Week 8, where we'll start with Thursday Night Football, where the Ravens bested the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are now 3-5. They've lost 3 straight, and adding insult to injury for Tom Brady, he got divorced. So what's the state of the NFC South, Charlie? Because it's bad.
I don't know. The Buccaneers have just not looked like they're going to be competitive. Someone, of course, has to go to the playoffs from that division.
Saints also just looked bad.
The Saints have looked bad. The Panthers don't have a coach, don't have an offense, don't have a quarterback, but they beat Brady somehow. Yeah. But I don't trust them at all. And I think Atlanta's the only team that could do anything in that division, and I don't trust them either.
They're 4-4 and leading the division. Now, the Saints beat the Raiders. We discussed the Saints just there, but what's going on with the Raiders? They're bad also.
Yeah, I think it's they're in a transition period. They have a new coach. We're still working some things out. They're not great this year. I do think that they are going to continue to improve. And, of course, picking up Devontae Adams just hasn't really seemed to help them.
Will they get back to the playoffs with Derek Carr as the quarterback, though?
Depending on if the Chargers start picking up again. Yep. If the Broncos continue to be bad.
Reasonable take.
And we'll see how.
And they will.
Yeah, we'll see how the Chiefs continue to do.
Yeah. Bengals. Browns was last night. We do not know what happened yet. The Eagles beat the Steelers, which begs the question now that the Eagles are 7-0. Are they real Super Bowl contenders? Because we knew that they were going to be good this year. I don't think any of us knew that they were going to be this good.
I could see them in the Super Bowl quite easily, actually. I think one of the bigger questions should be, will we see them in the playoffs? Yes, obviously. Will we see them go far into the playoffs? Most likely. Will we see them get to the Super Bowl? Yeah, probably. I think the question at this point should be, will they lose a game? They have just looked completely unstoppable.
And they're playing the NFC mostly. I mean, that's not bad. The NFC, the NFC is, but they're.
I think the only team really.
Their divisional schedule is tough, though.
Yeah, I think Giants might give them. Have they played the Giants at all yet?
Twice more. I think they have not played them yet. So
2 games against the Giants, 1 game against the Cowboys, and 1 or 2 against Washington.
Yeah, but Washington's irrelevant. Let's be completely honest.
I mean,
they're 500. They're 500.
They're coming back.
Well, the Titans beat the Texans. The AFC South still a smoking wreck.
Absolutely, and it will still remain that way.
Seahawks beat the Giants, so they're now 5-3, lead the NFC West by a full game with 2 straight wins against good teams. And let's not forget, those were both dominant wins. Like, they just clearly looked like the better team. So are they a legitimate contender?
I think yes. I think they will most likely win that division. I think surprisingly, coming out of nowhere, the Seahawks might make a deep playoff run.
Yeah, because we know how Charlie is with divisional predictions.
Bad.
49ers beat the Rams, staying in this division. So is it time to start worrying about the Rams? They're 3-4.
Certainly, but from a perspective of a team leading the division, I would be more concerned about the now McCaffrey-led 49ers.
Yeah. Well, the Bills beat the Packers, so Bills, they're good. They're good. They are legit. They beat the Chiefs.
The Packers are not.
The Packers are not. The Packers are 3-5. We talked about them last week. Charlie had a fairly epic rant about them.
I did, and I
all
still
they
stand
need to
by.
be- yes.
If they lose one more game of their next two, they're done.
They're done.
I could see them losing to Detroit next week.
Yeah.
Detroit actually had a surprisingly good game against Miami.
Yeah. Some other scores. Broncos beat the Jaguars somehow. Dolphins beat the Lions. Falcons beat the Panthers.
In overtime. That was actually a really good game.
By a dumb penalty.
Very dumb penalty.
It was hilarious. Vikings beat the Cardinals. Cowboys beat the Bears. Patriots beat the Jets. And the Commanders beat the Colts. Meanwhile, in college football, Charlie.
Real quick, going back to those other scores, I feel like we probably need a bigger word in terms of that Cowboys game, because they didn't just beat the Bears. Tony Pollard went insane and deleted the Bears defense. Dak had a good game. Just really great overall from Dallas. I could see Dallas, as I said. I think Philly.
That division's good.
Philly might win every single game, but I think Dallas might be that one team that stops them.
Yeah. If we move on to college football, number 2 Ohio State defeated Penn State, number 13, which was actually their first win against a team with a winning record, and yet still number 2 in the rankings. Meanwhile, Oklahoma State, ranked number 9, probably shouldn't have been ranked number 9 as they got deleted by Kansas State, number 22 Kansas State, 48-0.
What is with Oklahoma? What is with the Oklahoma teams? Oklahoma lost 49-0 to Texas, and I think Oklahoma State saw what they did and wanted to do it as well.
Yeah. Meanwhile, number 3 Tennessee beat number 19 Kentucky. Number 10 Wake Forest was beaten by unranked Louisville, and Notre Dame beat number 16 Syracuse. So the new AP rankings, no change in the top 8. Kansas State did jump to number 13, Oklahoma State down to number 18, Wake Forest falling to number 20. Liberty, Oregon State, and UCF join the rankings, while Cincinnati, Kentucky, and South Carolina leave the rankings. The Pac-12 surprisingly has 5 ranked teams, the 3 in the top 10, those 3 being Oregon, USC, and UCLA. Well, the first ranking by the College Football Playoff Committee will come out tomorrow, and expect anything, because that committee is bonkers.
Yeah, they cannot be trusted.
Well, let's finish up this episode with some news from the Formula One. Mexico Grand Prix was this weekend.
Yes. I just want to clear something up from the last episode. Last episode, I did mention the fact that there was a thing going on with the cost cap, that there was a possibility that Red Bull actually had not done anything wrong. That was, in fact, not correct. I was wrong there. And the FIA have now determined the punishment for Red Bull. They've been fined $7 million and had a 10% reduction in their wind tunnel time. But as for the actual Grand Prix, Verstappen starting from pole, followed by the 2 Mercedes in second and third. Pretty boring race, actually. Basically nothing happened. Verstappen won from pole. Mercedes had a bad strategy that really put them out of the race towards the end. And the Ferraris just were nowhere. Even towards the back of the field, not much was going on. The only weird result was a point for Alfa Romeo from 10th for Valtteri Bottas. The only interesting thing that happened in the race was Ricciardo and Tsunoda had a collision. And then the only other thing other than that was Alonso. Alpine have another engine failure. So that battle for 4th between Alpine and McLaren is really heating up as we have only 2 races to go. A sprint race in a few weeks in Brazil, and then on November 20th, we end the season in Abu Dhabi.
And we're going to end our episode right here, so make sure that you subscribe. We have new episodes coming out every single Tuesday, available everywhere that you listen to your podcasts. We also have a special episode coming out this Friday. Should visit our website, cctalks.net. It has everything that you need to know about the show. Call us with your questions at 360-389-2630, and follow us on Twitter while Twitter lasts at CC Talks Podcast. For our producers, Morris, Zach, Drake, thanks for listening, everybody. We will see you next week.